Alright everybody, welcome back. Today we are doing something a little bit different and we are going to be predicting the Chicago Bears overall ratings position by position for the next installment of Madden, which is of course Madden 20. So let's go ahead and get started with the quarterbacks, or at least the starting quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. He ended the year last year at a 79. I'm hoping that he starts it this year at about an 82, 80, at least in the 80s somewhere. I think he deserves it. He made the Pro Bowl. 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio is pretty good. Completed over 65% of his passes, which is also pretty good. I think he deserves it. Obviously, he's also a good scrambler, things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up starting in at 79 again, just leaving him, bringing him back where they left him off last year. But I'm hoping to give him a little bit of extra love after they have an off season to sit on his performance. All right, now we're over here to running backs, and I ended up downloading a custom roster for this so I can get the players that the Bears added in the offseason between the draft and free agency. So we've got David Montgomery here from the draft, Mike Davis here from Seattle, and then of course the returners Tariq Cohen and the 7th-round pick Kareth White, who I think will probably end up being a practice squad guy if they don't decide to carry 4 running backs. But anyway, David Montgomery, not sure where they'll start him. 74 is probably fair. He's a 3rd-round rookie. He is a running back, and they tend to go. You tend to get good value for running backs, regardless of where you draft them. So him being, I think he'll end up having a pretty decent year, which I will be doing an NFL season prediction later on, and once we get around towards August. But I think that he'll probably start off at about a 74. Cohen, on the other hand, I'm thinking probably mid 80s somewhere, maybe on the lower side in the mid 80s though. I don't know necessarily if he's going to get that huge boost, just considering that he's not a super huge volume guy. So I don't really know. Mike Davis, 75, 76, somewhere around there is probably fair for him, and that's kind of where I expect him to be. Fullback, don't know if they'll even carry a fullback, but I don't know, man. Michael Burton at 67, that's probably fair. I don't necessarily know what they plan on doing with that, but he's not a huge part of the offense. They do use him every once in a while, but again, not really a big deal. All right, wide receiver, there is quite a few big changes here. So the top 3 guys are pretty much going to remain the same. You got Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, and Taylor Gabriel is kind of your main 3. Allen Robinson, I expect 87, 86, somewhere around there to start. Anthony Miller, somewhere in between 77 and 80, probably more towards the 77 there. I think he's going to have a pretty decent year, but going into Madden 20, I'm thinking 77 is a pretty good area for him. Taylor Gabriel, probably 78, 79. I can see him going as high as 81, but 78, 79 is probably what I would guess for him. And then as for the rookies and guys that didn't really play much last year, it's anybody's guess. Riley Ridley, low 70s, I'm sure. He's a 4th-round pick. He's a bigger name, but he's still a 4th-round pick. Cordell Patterson, low 70s. He's really here to return kicks. Javon Wims, who knows? He didn't play much last year. He'll probably stick around 68. Marvin Hall, we'll see if he makes the team. But, I'm not going to worry about the guy super low down the depth chart. But it is a deep position for the Bears this year. All right, tight end group. Trey Burton up top. Probably about an 85, 86. I could see him going more towards 84. I believe he finished the year around an 87. So somewhere around there is probably about fair for him. Shaheen, 72, 3 tops. Broniker, 67. They actually are moving Bradley Saul down here to tight end, so we'll see what they do with him. Again, it's probably going to be a very low overall rating for him, unless he shows out in the preseason or something. Although the game does come out before then, but it's probably going to be low for him. Left tackle, Charles Leno, mid-80s somewhere. Not going to spend too much time on the offensive line. It's not a huge deal, but mid-80s somewhere for Charles Leno for sure. Left guard, this is actually going to be Cody Whitehair, but they're switching James Daniels and Cody Whitehair. Cody Whitehair is actually the Bears' best offensive lineman. Doesn't really get love like that for some reason, but I think he should be upper 80s, mid to upper 80s for sure. Center, this will be where James Daniels actually is. mid 70s to upper 70s for him. He had a pretty good rookie year, but again, it's hard for offensive linemen to get these big jumps. They're not really very big names or anything like that. Kyle Long, the biggest name on the Bears offensive line, low 80s for sure. Had an injury plagued 2018. Hopefully he's a little bit healthier in 2019, but low 80s, high 70s is probably where he's going to start off the year. And then rounding things out with Bobby Massey, who is, I don't know if I necessarily want to call him the weak link in the Bears offensive line, but he's definitely the lower end there. Mid 70s is good for him. Solid player, not a star or anything like that. Did get a nice payday, which I do think he's worth it, but that's probably where I expect to see him. The 76 is probably pretty good, maybe 74 to 75. All right, left end here with Akeem Hicks, the star on the defensive line. 91 is honestly pretty good for him. He's one of the top 3 players on this team, no doubt about it. He's a stud, one of the most underrated players in the league. 91 is good for him. Right end, Bilal Nichols. Actually a very interesting one. He was a 5th round pick last year, and he ended up propelling himself into the starting job by the end of the year. Finished Madden 19 at about a 77. This is a custom roster, as I mentioned before, so people were tweaking things, but finished the year at about a 77. I expect him to start the year around there somewhere, and they might dock him a point or two just because it's the beginning of the year. I could see him being a 75, 76, but somewhere around there, those mid 70s towards the high end. Another underrated player on the Bears defense, Eddie Goldman. 87 is a pretty good overall for him. He really anchors the middle of that defensive line, makes it hard to run up the middle. Really a good player. Doesn't fill up the stat sheet, which is why you don't see a ton of high ratings for him. You don't see like a ton of cards for him coming out in Madden all the time because he's that nose tackle. He just kind of eats blocks, but very important position in the Bears defense. I expect him to be somewhere in the mid to upper 80s for sure. All right, the superstar of the Bears, the superstar of the Bears defense, Khalil Mack. No reason not to expect him to start the year off at a 99 again. He is absolutely dominant. Still had a great year despite the fact that he had no offseason program. Didn't start playing football until a week before the season started and had an ankle injury in the middle of the year through there. Yeah, definitely a 99 for him. He's going to have that X Factor ability that people keep talking about. He's going to be a dominant player to use in play nows and Ultimate Team, and a player you're going to want to get in franchise mode. All right, middle linebackers. This is actually a really interesting one to me. I expect them both to start out the year somewhere around the mid to low 80s. I expect Roquan Smith to kind of skyrocket as the year goes on and he develops into a star. He's another guy. He had a really good season last year, but he didn't really do much of anything football related until about a week or two before the season started. He had that holdout, and then he had that hamstring or groin, I believe it was, injury, some soft tissue, lower body pull. So he didn't even really start until like week 3 or 4. So I expect him with a full offseason program and a full year of starting to really skyrocket up the Madden boards. And with his speed, he is a great user over the middle there. All right, now we're at right outside linebacker. Leonard Floyd is going to start. I don't know why they have Aaron Lynch above him. I expect him to be about a 78, 76 wouldn't be too bad. He's been a little bit, I don't want to say disappointing because he's played well, but he hasn't piled up the numbers like you would hope a top 10 pick to do. But, he's a pretty solid player. He's good against the run despite his size, and he's a decent complement to Khalil Mack on the other side, more of a speed rusher to Khalil Mack's power. All right, another star position for the Bears defense is corner. Here we got Kyle Fuller. He started the year at an 83 last year, I guess. He ended up around a 91, 92. That's where I expect him to start the season. High end 93, low end 90. Somewhere around there is kind of where I expect him to start. He had a great season in 2018, of course. All-Pro selection, like 7 interceptions. Great year from him. On the other side of him, we got Prince Amukamara, a solid player. Nothing wrong with him. He gets the job done. Moved over here in an accident. A little bit handsy. Gets called for PI every once in a while, but I expect him to be around an 80, 78, 79, 80, somewhere around there. Again, a solid player, not your star player on the defense, but a good solid player that'll be useful in playing downs in Madden next year. And we'll do Buster Screen when we get to slot corners. Probably the second best player on the Bears defense, Eddie Jackson. He finished the year last year at like a 95, and that's where I expect him to start the year. This year he tied Kyle Fuller with 7 interceptions as well. Also had a multitude of defensive touchdowns, and he really is just a ball hawk playmaker back there. Got hurt at the end of the season, which is one of the reasons the Bears ended up losing that playoff game. But man, he's just a good player, and I think that he's going to start the year at about a 95. I don't see any reason for him not to do so. All right, one of the bigger acquisitions for the Bears this offseason was Clinton Dix. Of course, the former Green Bay Packer, was on Washington, D.C. for a little bit last year, too. Kind of had a down year, people like to say. Still had 3 interceptions and like 80, 90 tackles, something like that. But Clinton Dix, I expect him to start the year about an 80, within 2 of an 80, and in either direction I can see the 78 here, or I can see him being like an 82, 83. Be nice to see, be curious to see if they give him a little boost just from the fact that he's playing on a good defense and they expect him to do better, but this is about where I would expect him to be. Not going to get into kicker. Don't want to talk about the kicker. Don't even know who the kicker is going to be. I promise it's not Cody Parkey, but again, don't care. Paddle down, 76 is fine. It's just a punter. Kick returner, so this is why they really brought in Cordero Patterson. I expect him to be upper 90s in kick return. 95, 96, that's fair for him. He's one of the better kick returners in the league. Will really help what was a sore spot for the Bears last year. They should get them a lot better field position if he can stay healthy, of course. Punt returner. This is actually a place where if Kareth White makes the roster, I could see him being their main punt returner. I don't know if they necessarily will have Cordell Patterson do it. They had Tariq Cohen doing it a lot last year. I think that they would prefer to get him his touches on offense, so look for a guy like Kareth White to get those punt returns. And, as for what overall he would start there, probably mid to low 70s. And he's really fast, but, he's obviously just a 7th-round pick, so can't really expect too much out of that. Kickoffs, don't know who's doing kickoffs. Doesn't matter who's doing long snapper. Third down running back, this is probably going to be Cohen. Again, look for him to be in the mid-80s, somewhere around 85 would be reasonable for him. Power running back, again, this isn't necessarily a position that I would worry about too much. Maybe it'll be David Montgomery, maybe it'll be Mike Davis. It won't be Kareth White, I'll tell you that. Slot wide receiver, this will be Anthony Miller. Looking for him to be about an 80 next year would be my prediction for that. Again, I think he's primed for a breakout season. He should be healthy all year this year instead of playing with one shoulder. But look for him to start the year at about an 80 overall. Again, Akeem Hicks will probably be a rush DT, actually. Look for this to be Khalil Mack, of course, at a 99. No reason it wouldn't be rush right end Leonard Floyd. Probably about an 80. Somewhere around there. Just a hair under, maybe. And then the rush DTs. You know what? This one is actually kind of interesting, too, because Akeem Hicks has one, and I would not be surprised if they looked to get Eddie Goldman some more rest by using Bilal Nichols in this position. They, especially in the beginning of the year last year, their nickel package was Goldman and Hicks in the middle almost every single time, but I actually would not be surprised to see Bilal Nichols take some of those spots to give Eddie Goldman more of a rest and keep him healthy for those rundowns where he's really special. Sub linebacker. This is going to be Roquan. Again, 81, 79, in that range there. I'm hoping towards the high end of an 81. The speed is really what makes him special here. He's one of the faster linebackers in the base game, if not the fastest. But again, 81, 80, 79, something like that for Roquan Smith is who I'm predicting to be the starting sub linebacker. And then slot corner to kind of close things out here, we have Buster Screen. I expect him to kind of, at least in the beginning of the year, take the slot corner starting spot. Mid-70s is probably fair for him. Don't know too much about Buster Screen. I know Matt Nagy liked him. He talked about him a lot in the pregame pre-game press conferences leading up to that Jets game. But other than that, don't really know a whole lot about Buster. They did draft this Duke Shelley here out of Kansas State, but again, it's just a late round pick. You can't expect anything out of that. But people are talking about him in the offseason program like he's doing pretty well. Not going to affect his Madden rating right off the bat, mid 60s for him, but keep an eye on him throughout the offseason program if you are a Bears fan. And all right, we are back to the beginning here. That is it for the Bears position by position Madden 20 overall predictions. Overall, I expect the Bears to be a pretty solid team in the beginning of the year. Next year, the offense will probably hover around the low 80s, and the defense will probably hover around the low 90s to start the year. And hopefully, the Bears as a team will have about an 85, 86 overall, and should be a good year to use the Bears in Madden next year. They were really easy to use this year because you could just sit in that nickel and stop the run, and they had a pretty creative offense with some different kinds of weapons. I expect them to be even better to use in Madden next year. More weapons on offense, same weapons on defense. Should be a fun year to be a Bears fan in Madden. So, thank you guys for watching. A little bit of a different video this time. Hopefully you guys stick around to the end. I know it is a little bit longer and there's not as much action in this one, but I'm really looking forward to Madden 20 coming out. Obviously, Madden 19 is getting a little bit stale. Hearing a lot of good things about Madden 20, so it should be a good year for Madden and a good year for football. Hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you next time.